If your child has a smartphone, they've almost certainly been exposed to pornography already. Average age of exposure is 11 years old. In an hour, they can see more explicit content than someone hundreds of years ago could see in their entire life. I think Genghis Khan himself saw in his entire voyage of pillaging Asia and Eastern Europe. I'm Dr. Johann, a clinical psychologist. I've spent 15 years mentoring young people, boys mainly, and working with their families. And I can tell you, this is the number one problem facing young people today. Pornography is not social media. It's not video games. It's not bullying. It's not drugs. It's not internet atheism. It's this, and it affects many people. This may be uncomfortable to watch, but if you want to help your child and if you're naive to the risks, then this is important. Let me show you what's happening. Let me start with the reality that most parents are incredibly naive about. So I talk to the teens directly. They open up to me because I'm not their parent. I know it's kind of funny that it works like that. It shouldn't work like that. They should be opening up with their parent more than anyone. But that's how it works. You know how it was when we were their age. So when I talk to groups, I ask them, how many of your friends are addicted to pornography? The rate I got is 85%. 85% of young people, and these are kids from really good families, actually, who go to Catholic schools, who pray daily, go to daily mass. 85% of their friends. So the average is probably much higher than that. And in fact, we do know that Common Sense Media reported this 93% of boys have been exposed to pornography by the time they're 18. It doesn't matter if you have family dinner. It doesn't matter if you go to church together. It doesn't matter if you pray together. If you have the smartphone, if your child has the smartphone, I should say, there's almost certainly going to be pornography addiction because it is an addiction. They can't help it. It's extremely powerful. For kids from good families, it usually happens through accidental exposure or through curiosity or someone in the neighborhood or someone in school. They're not thinking, I'm going to ruin the next couple decades of my life by getting stuck into an addiction that I can't break out of no matter how much I try. But they're young people with hormones and they're very curious. It's important for parents to realize that we're not talking about Playboy magazines here. What we're experiencing today is much, much worse. It's anonymous. It's instantly accessible. There's infinite variety. There's extremely shocking, grotesque, perverse content, which I don't want to describe. And it's free. There used to be an element of shame with viewing pornography. If you went to a Blockbuster, you have to go to a special area. No kid's going to do that. And also it's illegal, right? But with phones, they can access it just with a click of a button, just by checking the over 18 button. Parents ask, how does this happen? Scenario one, sleepover. This happened to a childhood friend of mine. Very common. Maybe the person's friend has an older sibling, so they've been exposed early. They go to the sleepover. Of course, no one sleeps on sleepover, and they see something that they're never going to forget. Literally, they're never going to forget. Years later, decades later, that's what people have told me. Your son gets home, he asks, how's the sleepover? He says, fine. That's normal. One-word answers from a teenage boy. You have no idea his brain was hijacked. Scenario two, the accidental exposure. Your daughter's doing research for a school project. She looks up something in Google Images. Well, anything you look at in Google Images, the most innocuous sounding search term, if you scroll long enough, you're going to see something really bad in there. Scenario three, the deliberate search. You know how kids find out how babies are made these days? There used to be an awkward talk with the parents. Kids don't do that. They don't wait for that anymore. They look at pornography to find out how babies are made. They hear the other kids talking about it in the lunchroom, and they're curious and they're embarrassed because the cool kids, they already know this stuff because their parents are divorced and let them do whatever they want. And they feel awkward and shame that they don't understand what's going on. So they look it up. Scenario four, the social media gateway. Social media is a gateway drug to pornography because it's already very superficial, vain, based on appearance, based on faking how attractive you look, and based on girls hypersexualizing their appearance so that they get more likes, and boys actively pursuing that and providing those likes and interactions. Social media advertising is largely based on hypersexualization. If you scroll enough on social media, it doesn't take long either. You're going to see something immodest, unchaste, and even an advertisement for pornography itself. Let me explain what's happening neurologically during this exposure. It feels amazing. There's an adrenaline rush. There's a sense of not only pleasure, dopamine, but also like fear and excitement, which is a very attractive sensation for a young person or anyone. We're wired this way for the survival of the species. Of course, it's going to feel good. God made us this way. It's not bad that we feel this way. What's bad is that it's due to a completely unrealistic stimulus. We're not meant to be viewing literally hundreds, thousands of hours of pornography, of all kinds of variety of images and situations. It's crazy. So it's higher than any natural reward, and there's zero real world consequences. The brain learns this is the most physically rewarding thing I've ever experienced. Nothing can compare to it. And so the other things go by the wayside. Face-to-face interactions with friends, with family, hobbies, sports, grades, struggling to find a reward in a job well done, in working hard. That's not going to compare to the dopamine release from pornography. What happens as the tolerance builds up? The user needs more and more to feel the same thrill. Otherwise, they get depressed because the dopamine receptors are shut off, as I told you in the previous video. This leads to more and more perverse forms of pornography. And I'm talking about things with, I mean, it's really dark to talk about. I don't really like to talk about it, but I've seen some crazy stuff, and I've heard some crazy things from my clients. It makes me physically sick to think too much about this, and it would make you sick too to hear about it. Unless you're addicted to pornography yourself, which statistically speaking, you probably are. Have you ever considered that pornography consumption is the complete opposite of true love? True love means sacrificing my own pleasure for the other person's good. That's what God intended for us in marriage, and this unity, is one flesh unity. Pornography is about sacrificing the other person's good, their purity, their integrity, their wholeness of being, their chance to be happy in life for my own selfish pleasure. This is why it's so dark, and this is why it's the devil's greatest invention. Now compound this with the shame spiral. Kids who have been raised well, they know it's wrong. The problem is not that they don't know it's wrong. They can't get out of it because it's an addiction, and that makes them feel terrible. That's when they get into depression and even suicidal, because they're living a lie. They're living a life that they know is not in accord with their ideals and is not making them happy. And as much as they try, they cannot get out of it. Effort alone is not enough. They need serious help. They're suffering alone because they feel like they can't tell anyone because it's really embarrassing. And how are their parents going to react? Here are the consequences. Let's paint a picture of what happens if this isn't addressed. Academic decline, maybe the least of the person's worries, frankly. But for a parent, often something of great concern, and maybe one of the first things you notice. Why the focus isn't there. And also, there's no sense of being willing to sacrifice a short-term pleasure for a long-term gain, because the constant addiction is training them to do the opposite. It's training them to sacrifice the longest-term gain, which is their eternal reward in heaven, for a short-term pleasure right now. Social withdrawal. Real relations require real effort and commitment, and pornography trains us to do the opposite. And it's actually not enjoyable to spend time with real people anymore. Emotional instability. Addiction is a craving cycle. So the person experiences this surge in desire to partake in the addictive behavior or substance. But then this is followed by a crash. Once that craving is satisfied, then the person experiences kind of a depression from this dopamine drop after the craving is satisfied. And also from the shame that comes from realizing that they're not living according to their ideals. Erosion of romantic relationships. A normal or real human being cannot satisfy sexual addiction in the same way that pornography can. And this is such a degree that the person is not even physically stimulated by being in a sexual situation. Why do you think sexual dysfunction in men is so high? And of course, the biggest one, spiritual death. People feel cut off from God. They feel cut off from society. They feel hopeless. They feel like there's no redemption for them because they're constantly giving into something that they know is so bad, or they change their beliefs to match their practices. For teens, for college-age people, one of two things happen. They change their actions to match their beliefs, or they change their beliefs to match their actions. Great impact. Young men dropping out of school, dropping out of college because of this addiction. I've seen that. I've worked with that. Or failure to launch. People staying in their parents' basement, not pursuing really anything of productive value to society. Getting stuck at a dead-end job, or not even working at all, just playing video games and watching pornography. That sounds like an exaggeration, but yeah, I have worked with that. And all of this traces back to a single moment when the parents smiling gave their kid a smartphone for Christmas, or grandparents did and parents didn't stop it. Okay, so what actually works? I'm not here just to be a prophet of doom. I want to help you out, and I know that this can change and that there is hope, and we can have a generation of kids who aren't suffering from this. Let's start with what doesn't work. Parental controls alone. Kids are smarter. They're going to outsmart that. Having one conversation about the talk. It needs to be an ongoing dialogue from the youngest age, because they're getting so much from all around them, from friends and from the internet. So we need to be accompanying them throughout their development, not just having one talk. Shame and punishment is addiction. That's not going to be good enough on its own. Just trying harder, willpower. People try that for years and it doesn't go anywhere. They need to outsmart the addiction, not just try harder. Ignoring it and hoping it goes away. What does work? Never give them the smartphone. This is the most effective prevention. Yes, they can be exposed in other ways, but you haven't participated in that exposure, and you've greatly reduced the chances of it. Also, please surround them with friends who don't have smartphones either. That's very important as well. Choose your school based on that. Have repeated conversations about sexuality with your children starting at a very young age, adapted to their age, of course. Great book, Tips for Talking to Your Kids About Sex by Kane Fox. Also, Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. If they do get exposed to pornography, which they probably will, how they should react to it. That's a great picture book for kids. Establish yourself as the authority so that they come to you, so that you are the one who satisfies their curiosity. You want to get the sense that mom and dad are the expert. That's the person I'm going to turn to. If my friends bring something up, if I see something on the internet, I want to talk to mom and dad about it. Build anti-fragility. In this modern 21st century American empire in which we live, in which the devil is the lord of the world, we need to prepare ourselves and prepare our children to actively reject evil. It's not enough to be just completely protected from it. We need to take the offensive and know that the kids are going to face great moral evil, and we've trained them to knowingly pursue the good for its own sake, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable, and push away that device when the friend shows it to them. Tell the friend, don't ever do that again. I'm going to smash that the next time you give me that. If the addiction has already developed, then you need help, and in some cases, professional help. Bottom line, pornography is not just one of many screen-related concerns. It is the number one concern and is the biggest challenge to your child's happiness. It damages brain structure, sexual bonding, self-control, emotional stability, spiritual life, and future relationships. It all starts with smartphone access. You love your child to protect them from this, even when it's hard, even when they're angry, even when you're the only one doing it, especially when you're the only one doing it. The good news is the brain can heal. People can break out of this. I've seen people who have done it. It takes time. It takes work. It takes grace, but it is possible and it's totally worthwhile. And those people turn around and step back and help the other people come out of this hell. It's possible, but the first step is removing access. In my next video, I'm covering social media and video games and how they serve as gateway drugs to pornography. But before you do that, if this video hit home with you, please check out my clinical guide, The 4 Critical Moments Parents Miss. It's in the description below. If you're a school administrator or youth group leader, I want to talk to your group, contact me in my email below. Subscribe, grab the guide, check out the video. This is Dr. Johann D'Souza. Your kids are worth fighting for.